Welcome to Saturday Night Live. We're glad you're here. This is our Zoom meeting, and we're glad you chose to join us tonight. And we're going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to welcome Catherine's going to read the steps for us.
All right. Step 1, we admitted that we were powerless over our problems and that our lives had become unmanageable. Step 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3, we made a decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God. Step 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. Step 7, we humbly asked God to remove our shortcomings. Step 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. Step 9, we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Step 10.
Welcome to Saturday Night Live. We're glad you're here.
Sorry, Kate.
You're okay. Step 10, we continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 11, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry it out. And step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
Well done, Kate.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thanks, Kate.
We appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
And we have Lisa that's going to do the step work tonight. Please welcome Lisa.
Thank you. All right. I don't know if you'll be welcoming me so openly, Deb, when I get done talking about all of this.
Oh, no.
Well, we better say go, Lisa, right now before you get to talking, right?
Yes.
Go, Lisa. Go, Lisa.
So the section of step 7 that I'm talking about today is pride born of hurt. Let me start with I resemble that remark. And then we'll go on into it. It says, so we humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. This is the little section that is in the Life Recovery Bible. Kind of show you everybody here out there in internet land. You can see it has this little section where you can read it, and it really kind of breaks things down. I enjoy that for myself because it just makes it a little bit more approachable and easier for me to have that. But it says our pride can keep us from asking for what we need. We may have grown up in a family where we were consistently ignored or disappointed. Perhaps our needs were seldom met. Some of us may have reacted by becoming self-sufficient. We determined never to ask anyone for help. In fact, we were going to strive to never need anyone's help ever again. It is this type of pride, born out of hurt, that will hold us back from asking God to help us deal with our shortcomings. Jesus said, and so I tell you, keep on asking, and you will receive what you ask for. Keep on seeking, and you will find. Keep on knocking, and the door will be opened for you. For everyone who asks receives. Everyone who seeks finds, and everyone who knocks, the door will be opened. Luke 11:9-10. You parents, if your children ask for a loaf of bread, do you give them a stone instead? Or if they ask for a fish, do you give them a snake? Of course not. So if you sinful people know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your heavenly Father give good gifts to those who ask Him? We must come to the place of giving up our prideful self-sufficiency. We must be willing to ask for help, and we can't ask for help just once and be done with it. We must be persistent and ask repeatedly as the needs arise. When we practice step 7 in this way, we can be assured that our loving Heavenly Father will respond by giving us good gifts and removing our shortcomings. So several things when I am reading that kind of stand out. And, you know, something that we say a lot, or that I hear a lot, is that you're going to find what you go looking for. And, you know, interestingly enough, this scripture tells you that it's not just about if you go seeking God and knock on that door and ask him, you're going to find that. But the scripture also tells you if you go not seeking God, that door will open for you as well. If you, what you're looking for will be open to you. It says very, very clearly, if you keep asking, keep seeking, that door will be open for you. So if you are, you know, and that goes back into what Doug tells us, to practice what you want in your life, you know, practice makes permanent. So if you keep practicing and practicing and practicing, that's the same thing as seeking and seeking and seeking and asking and asking and asking. So sometimes our pride doesn't let us sit something down. Sometimes our pride says, well, it's my responsibility. I got myself into this mess. I got to take care of it. But God says, I just want you to ask. Stop doing anything there. That's where you stop and he starts. But we don't understand that. We still feel like, okay, especially in recovery, when we get to step 7, we're going, well, we still have 8, 9, and 10, 11, and 12. I got things I got to do. We don't understand that step 7 where we ask and just let him do his part. And sometimes we have to keep seeking that thing that we want. I mention this often, so you guys may get tired of hearing this, but, you know, I talk about, you know, I used to be I realized I was very angry, and Doug telling me that I was passionate and efficient, and, you know, realizing that meant that I was hot-headed with a short fuse, but also, in a way, I realized that some of that was Doug's prayer for me. You know, I was able to keep asking and keep working and keep going into that, and he kept saying that to me repeatedly, even when I didn't understand it. And now I am able to communicate in those same things that he said time and time over again. I was not angry and hot-headed and short-fused. I'm not those things anymore. I still have my moments. Just everybody knows me. There are times when, you know, my fuse is shorter than others. But the difference is that these days I can go back and say, my bad. And so that means that God's working. Sometimes we think that just because we did something or we had a shortcoming, we've failed. That means we didn't do this step right. But sometimes our ability to recognize it sooner, that's still progress. That means you're still on that journey to allowing God to remove it, because it's becoming less and less of a stronghold in your life. And so I thought that was something that was really interesting to me. So practice what you want in your life, keep seeking, because that's what God says. And if you're seeking chaos and misery, that's what door's going to open to you. And then the other thing too that I thought was interesting was this, where it talks about the gifts that we give our children. I thought how interesting, because if we could look at ourselves like God looks at us, or if we could even attempt to look at ourselves like we do our children, for those parents that are out there, you know, if you could just attempt to treat yourself with the same compassion, kindness, teaching, love that you do your children, and give yourself those same gifts that you would want to give your children, how much different could you be in your life, and how much stronger could you be? But often we have this pride, you know, or fear, maybe, I guess, or I don't know. Sometimes we feel like we're not worthy. And maybe that comes from hurt from the past. Maybe that comes from your personal experience. Maybe you had somebody your whole life telling you you're never going to be good enough. You're never going to amount to anything. Nobody's going to love you. Nobody's going to want you. You'll never be anything but, and so you either self-identify with that and let that determine your life and become your self-fulfilling prophecy, or you become that self-sufficient angry person who says, I'll prove you wrong and then I won't need anybody. And so you get angry and bitter, and so you still become self-sufficient. It's not any healthier than the other one. It just looks better on the outside. The wrapping and the bows are better, but the box is all still the same size, and so and it's all filled with the same kind of poo. But I thought this was very interesting that pride, we sometimes, and I remember one time Doug asking somebody, are you better than God? Why can you forgive somebody else but you can't forgive yourself? And sometimes, that pride born out of hurt, we don't even recognize it as that, but we feel like we can't forgive ourselves because we are unworthy, worthless human beings. And that comes from our own guilt. But sometimes it's that hidden pride that we call guilt. Because if we truly accept these steps and we accept God into our lives to help us, with these steps, then that thing that made us feel that way, it's not there anymore. It's been given up. We gave that up, made that decision in step 3. So when we hit step 4, we were no longer that creature that we were when we were making those bad decisions. And when we get into step 7, we're still learning. We're just learning to not learn on our own understanding, but giving ourselves to God and letting him do that work, and learning to just be still and let God work. So I guess the theme is, instead of being prideful, born out of hurt, learn to sit and simmer in God's love. So that's what I get when I think of this. And so that's kind of all I got. I'm going to turn that back to Zach. Thank you.
That's good, Lisa.
Thank you.
That was really good. Thank you, Lisa. And I think we're ready for reflection. Please welcome Angie for reflection.
Hello, everyone.
Go, Angie.
So, Lisa, that was really good. I think that that is where most of my problem is that I've been so self-sufficient and not even really realized it, to the point that I have just I don't trust anybody but myself. So, and then most of the time I get it wrong anyway. So that's really not good at all. I think that in step 7 is the we humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings and to build our character. So this should be a turning point in our recovery, where we have to, come to him and be maybe humiliated just by being strong enough to turn over to him. I kept thinking about this when I was reading, and it says to ask and ask and ask, and it shall be given to you. In the Bible, the analogy is, if you go to a neighbor's house and keep knocking on his door, and he says that they're all in bed, please go away. But if I don't have what you need, but if you keep knocking, then he's eventually going to get up and just give it to you, not because he wants to, but because he's annoyed. So persistence was one thing that I see that God keeps telling persistence. So to me, like, when you fall and get back up, keep keep going and keep pushing forward. It's persistent, to help you to be able to forego and to, one day eventually you'll get it right and be able to give it all over to God, and he'll replace your character defects and make everything wonderful one of these days. So basically that was what I was what that step 7 does for me. Is I'd never read that part of the Bible before. Well, I'm sure I've read it before, but I never really connected the persistence to everything else. And so when I was studying it this time, that's what I really got out of it. And I think that's all I have, Zach.
Well, thank you, Angie. We're moving right along tonight. So it sounds like it's Doug time. So you got a bunch of time tonight. I hope you're ready there.
Left them open for questions.
Well, I wanted to
So-
let everybody, can we give everybody an opportunity to say hello? Can we do that, Zach?
Yeah, I'll go first. This is Zach. Hello. Hope everybody's doing well.
Good. Debbie,
This
won't we
is
go with
Don.
you next?
Hello, everybody. We're glad you're here.
John, we'll let you go next, please.
Hello, everybody. Glad you're here. Glad we can be part of your lives and part of your recovery.
Thanks, John. Kate, how about you? How about that? We'll go to you next.
Hello, I'm Kate. Glad y'all can make it tonight.
Miracle, are you able to say anything? No. Glad you made it, Miracle. Okay, Lisa, we'll let you go ahead and say your howdies. How about that?
Hello, everybody. Glad you could be here tonight.
And thanks for that step information. We'll probably work on that a little bit here in a minute. Angie.
Yeah, when I looked at the time, I figured out we left you open for way too many questions.
Hello, everyone. It's Angie. Glad everybody could be here tonight. And we're getting ready to have a good night.
Are you sure about that?
Well, oh yeah, you've got lots of questions going on here, of course.
And Zach, you started, so did you have any comments about the information thus far?
No, I think that we should define the I did have one thought though. I think we should define pride born of hurt a little bit. I think that might be beneficial. That's my thought. I think we should define that for folks.
Okay. Did anybody else have any other comments? All right. If you have a comment or a question, if you can try to wave at me or something, I'll try to recognize you. If nothing else, holler at me. How about that? So, and by the way, I want to thank everybody for being with us here at Saturday Night Live, Life Recovery. And it's about helping us to recover from our life because life is messy. There's stuff all the time that happens. I had somebody ask me recently, he says, well, if I'm trying to be happy, how come bad things keep happening? And the reality is bad stuff does happen all the time. It just really depends on how you react to it. Would you say that, guys? How you Miracle sticking her tongue out, and so how you react to what's going on, and either you're playing the victim or you're playing the victor, and sometimes that's real hard to do, but I still believe that to be the truth. Now, to go to Zach's question, What exactly does that mean, pride born of hurt? Well, Lisa covered the information out of our out of the step information out of the Bible, that they have the profile there, and basically, and she said that she identified with this, and my wife said I identify with that also. And so, because the fact of it is, what we're talking about here, we're talking about pride because we got hurt, people let us down, people failed us, life failed us, systems failed us, and it was left up to us to try to navigate through life and go through, we're going to use the trauma word, go through our life's traumas, to whatever degree that trauma was. If some of those things, or if all those things happened that I just mentioned, though, that would be traumatic. It would be, you would be abandoned. You would be physically, emotionally, socially abandoned. And when we are abandoned, if we figure out, we find a way to live, survive, or we don't. And if you're watching this, if you're participating in this, you found a way. You're a survivor. Now, there are multiple degrees of surviving, okay, right? And maybe we'll come back to that if you remind me. But my point here is that because of having all this issue and trauma in our life, as I believe that I did for a large degree, I decided that I could not depend on anybody in life. So I needed to depend on myself.
That didn't work out.
And that I even went to the degree that I figured I already made everybody's decision for them. My decision was, you're not going to like me and you're going to reject me. So that's the way I am going. That's my frame, my window that I looked into life. And that may sound really terrible, but that's the way I learned to survive. Lisa, you had a comment. I am putting you in the spotlight.
Yeah, I was just going to say, for me, it's the same thing. Is I made that decision in struggle to make that decision, or to not make that decision for other people. But for a very long time, I just expected that everyone in my life was going to disappoint and or leave me, or decide that they didn't like me at some point in time. So I never allowed myself to have anything other than superficial relationships with them. I never let them really in deep. So I didn't give them opportunity to get anywhere. It was all very superficial, and usually it was based off of need, and they could have what they needed from me and then move on, because that was just the most efficient and effective way to get them to go ahead and get moved on down the road. And I picked people who were very unhealthy to hang out with at that time, because healthy people would question why I wasn't returning the favor, and other people would just say, gimme, 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 gimme. And so I just made that decision for other people too. When you said that, I was like, oh yeah, that's absolutely totally me. So.
And that's safer for us, because the reality is we're controlling the situation.
Yep.
What do you think about that, Lisa?
Absolutely. If I know how you're going to leave or why you're going to leave, then it's a lot easier than the unexpected curveball of you leaving and me having to sit here and wonder why and what's wrong with me.
Yeah, particularly if I force you to leave by one way or another.
Absolutely. If I make you leave because I made you mad, then I'm okay with that. It's okay because I'm probably mad too. Um, but if you just unexpectedly walk out of my life, and disappear, then I'm left with, well, why did you disappear on me? And that gives me a lot of playtime in my head, and that gets me behind enemy lines. And then, that's where all of that old pain, that hurt, like we were talking about, that hurt kicks in. So we get prideful in our controlling ways of controlling things. And that's where that pride comes in. I believe I can control things because I do this. It's kind of like being the puppet master. If I do this, then I'll get this from this person. But if I do this, then I get this from this person. And so we convince ourselves that we're getting our needs met, but we really aren't. We're just barely scraping the surface.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank
And
you.
to go off of some of the things that Lisa said there, she said that we weren't getting our needs met, and in a healthy degree, she's absolutely correct. But in an unhealthy way, we're getting some of our needs met because we have those needs or hunger, and it seems to be that we usually find unhealthy strategies or methods or systems to try to fulfill those needs, but it's still artificial. It's just surface, like you said a while ago, Lisa, surface. But it gets us a little something. It's kind of like what substance abuse, acting out, behavior issues. It gets us a little bit of something that we're hungry for or starving for, that we're trying to feed that inside of us. But at the same time, we're trying to control everything so that I get what I need, but I keep you far enough away so you can't hurt me. You got something you want to say on that, Lisa?
I said, so I'm not vulnerable. My favorite word on the planet.
Yeah. And how did all that work out for you, Lisa?
I ended up vulnerable anyway. So I just didn't recognize my vulnerability. So interestingly enough, by acknowledging the fact and allowing yourself to be vulnerable to people, it's interesting to me that by allowing myself to be vulnerable with other people, it actually gives me more strength. Because I don't know how to explain it. I draw strength from that vulnerability. I really don't know how to explain it other than that's how it worked out for me. So I had, when I allowed myself to be vulnerable, I had more supports in my life who were consistent, and they wanted to stay there. And so I was no longer alone. I then was a we instead of a me. And so we always are strong, like the triple braided cord. I had a we instead of just a me, a one single cord. So, but I had to allow myself to be vulnerable in order to maintain those relationships to get to that place.
Very good. Really good.
I had a thought, if you don't mind.
You know what? I don't mind. I almost switched to you and said, Zach, what's your thought?
There's a piece of this I think that we can overlook if we're not careful.
Okay.
If I continually self-sabotage my relationships, whether it be interpersonal relationships or work relationships or family relationships or friendships or whatever those are, if I continually self-sabotage those relationships, or I only keep those at arm's length, then I never have to become vulnerable, which it feels safer. Okay. And then I never have to really work on my stuff, right? Because there's nobody in my business, all right, uh, helping me see that I need to work on some stuff. And so some of the time why we do this self-sabotaging is because we get to kind of tiptoe through life without having to make any changes, and we can live under this false pretense that the world needs to adapt to us. But the danger in that, there's many dangers, and one of the most worst danger there is it isolates us and leaves us lonely. And that is really the worst state a human can be. And when you have isolated yourself and made you alone, made yourself lonely, made yourself alone, then we're easy targets for anything, you know. And God made us to have
Wait a
relationships.
second, Zach. I want to make sure that everybody heard that, what you said about being easy targets for anything.
Yeah, you're easy targets for anything, and we talk a lot about mental health at SNL, and we're constantly talking to ourselves. Our mind is constantly speaking to us, and it's not necessarily a mental illness. Your mind is constantly talking to you. And your mind is not always your friend. I don't know about anybody else, but my mind is not always my friend. My mind can just go off on a tangent and lead me off into trouble. And so if I'm by myself, and my mind is co-signing all of my own bullshit, or I only will allow people in my life who will co-sign my bullshit, or because that's something else we do. We
Right.
teach people, well, if you don't toe the line, then you're out. It's my way or the highway. And so then you may have people around you, but you're still alone because there's nobody in your life that you're willing to listen to that can come alongside you and say, hey, you might need to look at this. I love you. You need to look at this. This is dangerous. And so you're alone. You're an easy target. And it doesn't always have to be something on the outside of you that hurts you. It's your own mind leading you into telling you that you got something, you can handle something. Oh, well, I used to be an alcoholic, so my mind tells me, well, you haven't had anything to drink in 15 years, and well, you can just have one. One's not a big deal. You can handle it now. Your mind will co-sign all of your crap. To co-sign all your bullshit. It'll tell you everything you want to hear, and then pretty soon if one was okay, then two will be okay. And well, if three is just one more than two, and then five is just two more than three, and then well, I had five one day last week. Well, if I have 5 2 days this week, it's just 2 days. And that can be, I'm just talking about drinking, but that can be anything. And so we need that. God made us to have a relationship, and God never put anybody in my life that just agree with everything I had to say. They didn't agree with everything.
I didn't agree with everything.
No, Doug, you didn't agree with everything.
That's what I said.
And yeah, Lisa's over here teasing me, and we have people think Lisa and I are pretty funny because, I had a guy one time tell me I need to get my woman in line. I just laughed at him, and because I'm thankful that my wife will say, hey, you're missing it. You need to. She loves me enough, and our relationship is well. She'll say, "Hey, you're missing it. You need to check yourself, before you wreck yourself." Not that she's threatening me, but you're missing it, and this is not who you want to be. Because I love you and I know who you want to be, and this is not who you want to be. And and I have friends that'll do that for me. And I have friends that I do that for. And God made us to have this relationship, but we're supposed to, we are our brother's keeper. Now I want to put a disclaimer out here. That doesn't mean that I walk around and that the scripture, I'm going to point out the speck in your eye while I ignore the beam in my own. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about taking care of one another.
Yes.
I'm talking about, my brother's hurting and struggling with relapse, and I say, "Hey, I love you. You don't got to go it alone." Like we say around SNL, not what are you doing, but what did you learn?
Yes.
We don't get on to people or chastise them. We say, "Hey, your clean time counts. Just get up and get another day." It's I think being alone is the worst state of being. I've been that a lot in my life, and I think, and you can be in a crowd of people and have a bunch of people around you, and you can be alone. The dope dealer, they have lots of friends because they got all the dope. Okay. But no one really knows them, and no one's really their friend. They're just there because they got the dope. You know what I mean? What I'm talking about is having somebody that really loves and cares about you. That ain't gonna co-sign your bullshit, and they can say, "Hey, I care about you, and I'm worried about you. You need to look at this." And I think that's one thing that we do at SNL that makes us so successful. We don't focus on the mistake; we focus on getting up. And loving somebody through the unhealthy choice. And so, if we're we have a self-sabotage self, and then we're an easy target. And I don't know, if I look back in my life, the times when things were right.
Lost you, Zach.
He's trying to reconnect.
Okay.
Hold on just 1 second.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and jump in here, and then when he's back, then we'll go forward with that.
Okay.
Because
That's what he said, is to tell you to take over.
Yes, sir. I have multiple things that I have noted here. I have probably, I don't know, 8 things, but I want to give everybody else an opportunity to say something. John, did you point your finger at me? Did you want to say something? Evidently not. Angie, Debbie, Kate, anything, anybody? Lisa? Miracle?
I just want to say I love you, Miracle.
Yeah. Okay, what we're some things that I wanted to touch on, that there's several things here, but the point that Zach was talking about, loneliness, is the biggest sabotage tool that we that we can use, because when we get separated, we do become vulnerable. I know the old story that we go into a cave to try to protect ourselves and isolate ourselves because it's safer in our cave. But when we're isolated and separated, then we're no longer getting that emotional nurturing that we get from others. And since we're not getting it, if we're not getting fed, then that means then we're become more and more emotionally sick. Okay. And if we're becoming more and more emotionally sick or weak or vulnerable, then that, or we become more extremely hungry for that connection. And like Zach said earlier, that what happens in us, the pendulum that is established there, is that because we're so hungry, we're open to anything, and we'll reach out for the first thing, which is normally unhealthy, and we'll grab it. It may be a drink, it may be drugs, it may be pornography, it may be a sexual relationship, it may be a fight, it may be gambling, it may be you just pick your poison. And so because we pushed ourselves in that cave and it made us so vulnerable, and we just hardened. What I did, and I think most of us did, I just hardened myself. I practiced on being emotionally hard so I couldn't be touched. But at the same time, that puts you in a place where you're very, very vulnerable because you're so empty and hungry, and it's so easy to reach out and take the artificial surface satisfaction that really, no matter, it doesn't really satisfy. Now, with that being said, how do we help people that is like in a emotional plane crash? They're in a dive. They're circling. They're going down. They're overwhelmed, and just by saying, you got to open up and be vulnerable when they're about ready to sink, about ready to hit the ground and die. How do we help them? Because the real tendency is just to give up, just let it go, and self-sabotage. Just go ahead and say, well, I knew this was going to happen, so I'm going to let it happen. So how do we keep people from not going to that place and being in that state of self-sabotage and just going ahead and using unhealthy mechanisms, or even to the extreme, being so mentally, emotionally distressed that they might even take their own life? I'll let you guys, we'll let Zach respond to that. How about that? And I'm going to Zach.
Hey, I got completely kicked out of the whole thing there. I know that was weird, but thanks for taking over there, Doug. Your question, how do we do that? One of the things that I do with people is most folks, it's a repeated cycle, and so they know what they're doing.
Good.
Like when I self-sabotage, I know what I'm doing. I've done it a bunch, and so someone coming alongside me and saying, hey, we both know what you're doing. I do it too. But we also both know that that's not what you want to do, because we're tired of this repeated cycle. And so if you want something different, you got to do something different. And so, you know, it goes back to that insanity thing. Doing the same thing over and over again, wanting different results is insanity. And so, you know, the truth is people know, people know what's going on. You know, we're not dumb. No one's dumb to it. We know what's going on. And so helping, you know, coming alongside someone and saying, hey, when we do this, we know what we're doing. And if you want something different, you got to do something different. And so we can't jump off in that hole. And sometimes the way to do something different is just not doing what you always do.
Good.
You know, and so sometimes it's not about knowing what to do, because sometimes you don't know what to do, but you know what not to do because you've done it so much and you know that result. And so just don't repeat that behavior. Just don't dive off that cliff. You know, because we know what we're doing. You know, if I dive off this cliff, then everything gets beyond my control. You know, if I go punch the policeman, I'm going to get arrested, and then everything's out of my control for a while.
That's right.
So if I don't want, so if I'm not going to do that self-sabotaging choice, then the choice is I'm just not going to go punch the policeman. And that may sound ridiculous, but sometimes it's just not doing what you know not to do. And then it's amazing what happens when you stop doing what you know is sabotage, what you know is sabotage in your life. Options appear.
Yes.
You know, they really do appear, because they were always there. You just weren't looking for them. You know, they were always there and available to you. You just weren't looking for them. They weren't an option to you because you weren't willing. But when you stop sabotaging your life, when you stop choosing to do that, and you go a different direction, those other options are there. And we think, sometimes we think not making the unhealthy choice is not doing anything. It's doing a lot. It counts. It's a huge choice. Not making the unhealthy choice is making a huge healthy choice. You know, not getting high or drinking or putting a needle in my arm or jumping in the relationship that's bad for me, or doing whatever it is. That's a huge deal. I mean, if that's what I've always done my whole life and I quit choosing to do it, that's a big deal, you know. And you know, so not doing what you know doesn't work, acknowledging the fact that you made a huge choice by not choosing it, and then, you know, and not to be religious here, but the truth is that, you know, it's just doing the next healthy thing that's in front of you. You know, and I think God leads us to the next healthy thing.
Yes.
You know, he doesn't lead me 14 steps ahead. He leads me to the next step. You know, and sometimes I wish I knew what the next 6 steps were, because that would give me some peace of mind. But he doesn't do that. You know, I just know what the next step is. You know, and so you do the next healthy choice. Okay, well, I'm not going to drink or get high today, or I'm not going to go punch the officer, or I'm not going to go get in this relationship, or I'm not going to get angry and lose control and go to jail. Okay, so I'm not going to let my emotions run away with me and just consume me. So I'm choosing not to do that. I'm not going to dive off the cliff. So then what's the next healthy choice? And then you do that. And sometimes it feels like you're not doing much, but you are. And then the next healthy choice. And then you just keep doing the next healthy choice. And pretty soon you've done a bunch of healthy choices, and you're not the same person that you used to be.
I want to jump in here, Zach, and say that, and all that is extremely good, and that making that next healthy choice is very beneficial. But we have to be willing to engage that there is there is something I can do. There is, see, when we don't think there's a way out, then we just go ahead and take a bad choice. And soon as we go ahead and if we can implement the thought, well, surely there's something, some healthy choice I can make. Okay, and like you said, and I agree with you that it's staring you right in the face, but sometimes you can't see it because you're so locked into all that you've always done and all those sabotage thoughts, and they're just whirling and trying to take control of your brain. And so if you can just say, wait a minute, and I talked here a few weeks ago about saying, hey, let's think creatively. Okay, we can say, hey, let's think differently. Maybe there is one thing that I can do to begin to turn this around. Because see, it doesn't take much to break that downward spiral. Not that it goes all the way. Breaking means it starts to make a shift. And that if we continue to make those healthy choices, it affects how we think, how we feel, and how we behave. And so I think that's really good. And so if you think you're circling the drain, there is way out. Don't give up. Just don't go ahead and dive on in and crash and die. No, that's not the answer. That's not the plan. You have God has a purpose and a plan for your life, even though you're so messed up emotionally right now, you can't grasp it. But know that, but there is. It's something there for you. And go ahead and do that. And on if we can, and that statement about we do know the unhealthy stuff and recognize that, and I don't know how many people I've talked to said they knew before they walked in the convenience store, they knew where the alcohol was. They knew where whatever it is that they already knew that, and their mind was already there a long time before they got there. And that's when you need to say, wait a minute, I need to make a different choice. And right there's where the battle is. You know, I maybe I overspend, maybe I spend too much, or maybe I do a good thing, I give too much away. I remember a guy that used to be in Saturday Night Live. I would literally give him some money, and he'd go telling me, and it was for a specific purpose in his life, like paying his rent. And he would go telling me, well, I'll take half of it and pay some on my rent, and I'll take the rest of it because there's all these other people that I want to give to. Which that's really kind, right? But the fact of it is, it continually sabotages life, because if you can't keep in life saving, if you can't save yourself, you're no good to anybody else. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
I got a thumbs up. Okay, before I get back on my sheet, because we only have just a few minutes left, is there anybody that wants to say anything?
I find it best to be dependently independent.
And that's called interdependency, John. I was looking for you, John, but your camera's not on you, so I didn't go over to you. So, but that's called interdependency, and I believe, and it's the way it's taught, that interdependency is the most mature way to function. And that means I'm able to be dependent on somebody in a healthy way, and I'm able to be self-reliant in a healthy way. So I'm able to have all the best in all the world. And so That's what interdependency is all about. Does that make sense? There you are, John.
There.
Does that make sense, John? That's basically what you said in different words.
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Well, we talked about stuck. We talked about being alone. I wanted to talk about, Zach's talking about the mind and how the mind, our mind sabotages us. In fact, there's research that says our brain will actually cause us pain to try to get us to do what it wants us to do, which is normally to just go ahead and feed it the unhealthy stuff that it's always had. So it inflicts pain on us to try to drive you in to get what it wants. And that's something. But it happens. But how do we deal with this? Well, I've been telling myself I really need to talk about the observer, and that's who you really are, who you were before you came to this earth, who you will be after you leave this earth, that you're able to go into that secret place of the Most High, the scripture talks about, and you're able to observe from that perspective, and understand that my brain doesn't have to be telling me the truth. And if I know my thoughts are sick thoughts, then we know they're not the truth. Yes? And so, but we're not going to talk about that tonight any more than that. So I just want to hit a couple of quick things. I did some research on this statement of pride born by hurt, and I found an article in Psychology Today says what's wrong with being independent, and the problem of being independent is that we become so distant, disconnected, shut off, so self-reliant that we will turn away people or disconnect from people or not connect to people to our own hurt, to our own pain. And so because I don't want to trust anybody or be open to them because they'll find out who I really am and they'll go ahead and reject me or make fun of me or mistreat me, which may be true, but there's a big cost to being so independent that you're cut off from everybody. And I'm trying to scan the article here and said where are we at? What are some of the downsides to too much independence? Did somebody say something? Somebody have something? Okay. Okay, there we are. So, some of the downsides to having too much independence. And by the way, if you want to look at this article, you're welcome. It's under the title, What's Wrong with Being Independent? And it says that researchers have found out that people who avoid asking for help may suffer significantly, socially and professionally. There's a great cost to that disconnection. You know, it's kind of like being a part of the team, but you're not in the team. If you're in a sports team, if you don't play together with the team, then you're not in the team. Does that make sense? And so you're not even though you may be the most skilled player. I remember when I used to play basketball in high school, you know, the most skilled player can be really skilled, but they decide they want to be a ball hog, and things don't work out well, because if it's a team sport, and life is, by the way. Oh, we hate that. We hate it. I know, I hate it. Okay. Life is a team sport because we really can't, and we're not made to survive on our own. Okay. It'll even cause mental, emotional, and physical illness. disorder. Okay. But anyway, let's get back to it because I'm over time already. How did I let this happen? But do what? They tend to avoid seeking valuable help from educators or colleagues because they feel vulnerable, needy, and weak. I understand. But by choosing to isolate in order of self-reliance, that they put themselves into a weak feeling of being unsupported and depressed. Can I get an amen or oh me out of the group? Or, what do you think about that, Debbie? Did you have a comment on that?
No. Go ahead. You're doing fine.
Oh, all right. I just thought I'd put you in the spotlight there for a second. All right. So those are some of the things they said that we need to do. And said, so the benefits of being depending on others are this. The first thing they said, I put it in yellow because I thought it was good. It said, as asking for help does not come naturally, we need to practice. If asking for help doesn't come naturally, we have to practice. Yes, Miracle, practice. Practice what we want. Don't practice what we don't want. Okay, right? Yes, yes. Because the trouble is, it's real easy. Thank you, Miracle. It's real easy to practice what kicks us around, sabotages us. We come to the conclusion that we deserve to be mistreated. I was looking for a good word there, Zach, and mistreated. So we need to practice healthy things. And I was going to talk a little bit today about the reticular activating system, and you already touched a little bit on it earlier, Lisa. But the reticular activating system is something that works in our brain. It sees what we're looking for, okay? And if we're looking for bad stuff, guess what? You're going to find bad stuff. How many times have I heard people saying, I can walk to any city and I can walk right to a dope house, or I can find whatever I'm looking for, and you can find whatever you're looking for. And so if we're open and we do ask, we do seek, we do knock, and those are healthy seeking, asking, and knocking, we will get it. And you say, well, it's sure coming slow. Well, I do have another question here. How about that? If you're trying to switch your approach now, and you're doing that, even though it may be a little, is your life better now that you're shifting that approach than you were when you were going headlong into the cesspool? What do you think of that question?
Any variation from heading even slowing down, even if you're not even if you haven't changed directions, even if you're still going the wrong way, if you just slow down, that's an improvement. And I think some people think that, well, we put so much pressure on about face and we don't count. We're so much pressure on ourselves to do an about face and make these dramatic changes, but just slowing down from headed the wrong way is a big deal. I mean, because that way we're dying. I'm trying to kill myself the whole time that I'm doing all that stuff. I mean, it's slow suicide. You know, and if I stop committing suicide even slower, that's an improvement.
Yes,
You know, that's my thought.
it is.
I think sometimes it's not even just about the changing what you're doing as much as it is just changing the perspective. So often we see faithful persistence as continual failure. And so, you know, it's kind of like what Andy was saying earlier, you know, like the Bible says, persistently seek, ask and ask and ask and ask again and ask again. And in our mind is, why can't I just get this already? And so, you know, why am I doing this over and over and over and over again? Well, because the scripture told you to. That's why.
Right.
So quit beating yourself up for doing exactly what the scripture told you to do. And if you didn't know that before, you know it today, so you have no more excuses. The Bible said to tell you to keep asking, keep seeking. And so sometimes it's just about changing our perspective from continual failure and knowing that we are having faithful persistence, and that we're sitting there seeking God, and we're following His instruction by continuing to seek that thing that we want, even when humanity kicks in. So it's just my
Right.
thought.
Thank you, Lisa. And you know, and I'm gonna mention a name here that everybody knows, and in particular, and she's doing really, really well, and that's Renee. Renee had called me multiple times, wanting me just to give up on her, you know, and that sounds real negative, all right. But see, she was called me to tell me she wanted me to give up on her because she felt hopeless. I've tried and I've tried and I've tried. And see, you can look at that thing as being as a real extreme negative act. But the fact of it was, she called, okay? And I told her, I said, no, you can't make me. I'm not doing it. I'm not giving up. No matter what you do, I'm not doing that. And I remember saying to her multiple times, and you can't make me. And so, and things are going really well. And she's anxious to get back into our live meetings when we get to that place. And so, and thank you, Lisa, for that. I want to go ahead and I want to wrap up my list here on the positives, the benefits of being dependent. And this is what they said, and I think it's good. And the first one is that you lighten your load. If we reach out, it does make our load a little lighter. Yeah, it feels funny because we're letting somebody else participate, but it's so important. It's enormous. It's huge to begin that process, to open ourselves up a little bit. Okay. I mean, when we've been like this for so long, and then when we stop doing that, and when we just do this, you know, or we blow up and we splatter crap everywhere, you know what I mean? You know, emotional crap, you know, and so what we have to do is we need to lighten our load by letting little people in, and they need to be healthy people. Trouble is, we can let we probably have a greater tendency to let unhealthy people in than healthy ones. Okay. And so that means we need to learn from our mistakes, say, yes, I did it wrong, but I'm going to learn from it. Number two, we need to learning more. We need to open up to people so that we can learn more. The capacity to learn becomes infinitely more available when you open up to people. Now, we receive more from people that we build a relationship with, or that we have some, I'm putting a little measure, some measure of trust. But you have to start somewhere before it can grow bigger. Yeah. And so and that means in my divorce recovery class that I used to teach, people are always talking about my pecker is broke. Okay, my pecker, my ability to choose the right guy, my pecker is broke, and that they kept picking the same person every time. I had this one person that told me they'd been married 5 times, and it said, and she was looking at it, and she realized that it's the same type of guy every time. And so we have to make different and healthier choices. And and actually this woman, her strategy to keep her from making bad choices, I'm gonna go ahead and say this, her strategy to keep her from getting married again was she didn't divorce the last one, but hadn't seen him for 15 years.
Huh.
That didn't keep her out of some relationships, but it didn't allow her to get married because of being married. I don't know. That was just something that came to my mind. Okay, and hopefully she's doing well because I haven't seen her in a long time. So next item, increasing effectiveness through collaboration. And that is that we're openly willing to exchange information, because now, once upon a time, I used to think I knew everything. And I only would talk about things that I didn't know. So you couldn't prove to me that I didn't know something. And I realized I don't know everything, and that I can learn much, much more by being open to listen to what other people say and think. Right? And again, it needs to be healthy people, right? And you say, well, I'm gonna try to choose healthy people, and I keep choosing the wrong person. Well, you need to learn that you can't be picking the same people every time. Well, I think we just talked about that, didn't we? Let's go on. Improving relationships. When you open up and become more dependent, then you have the chance to have better relationships, or just relationship. Okay, because I mean, actually, you always had a relationship, but it's what I refer to as a stiff arm relationship. Keep everybody at arm's length or further, to keep them away from you so that you feel safe. But the trouble is that negatively affects them, but what's even worse, it negatively affects you. So if we become a little, can you see this? I'm going to put it up here close. Little bit more open or dependent, then that can begin to let things happen. Okay. And then maybe you can think in that reticular activating system, I wonder if there's anybody else out there that I might be able to have a little bit of trust in. Okay, that's just, so we can improve our relationships, because the scientific research says that none of us survive without having these social connection, these relationships. In fact, I remember one thing that just popped in my head. They say that you actually will suffer mental disorders if you don't have healthy relationships in your life. Anybody want to comment on that statement? No. Okay. So, did you want to say something? I'm looking for you. Okay. All right. Okay, we're going to wrap it up. I'm 15 minutes over, right?
Okay,
Sorry about that.
Dad.
Do what?
Okay, in my choice, I have chosen I mean, my son and I talk about this. Okay. Because of the relationships that I've had in the past, and my husband, he's been dead now 20 years this year. But I had a few, but I did not ask the right questions. Like, do you drink? Oh, just a little. Well, just a little to me is maybe once in a great while, once every 10 years. Just a little to some people is, 3 6-packs a night. I mean, that's just a little to them. So you have to break down and ask questions. What might be if you ask somebody about their drug taking. Now, if they abuse drugs from a doctor, that's a whole different story to them. So you have to ask the right questions and be specific in those questions.
And I agree. Anything else?
No, it's just, I mean, my son and I talk about this because I hang around with a young crowd, which I know by my own standards, I don't want to be somebody's mother. So I put myself into the predicament that I just, there just is no way. I mean, this is very interesting to me because from Lisa on down, I just keep going, oh no, and I see myself in everything that everybody had said.
Well, thank you, Debbie. Appreciate it. And I had an excellent wrap-up thought, and guess what? I've lost it now. And so, but that's okay. We the question that I threw out there is, what's wrong with being independent or self-sufficient or having self-sufficiency is because we cut ourselves off from everybody else. And we will even do that with God. I got this. I'll call on you when I got big stuff. And how's that worked out for you? And because, and the only way that you have any good thing come out of that, out of self-sufficiency and independent of God, is that there's a good chance that you're mad or angry or deeply hurt about someone or somebody, and it gives you a place of having or putting yourself in a state of being distant so that you don't have to have any interaction with God and really come into place of healing, because there's a part of us that thinks that we do not need to forgive, we do not need to heal. I have a right to hold on to my anger until things change. And the fact of it is, we can't change anybody else. And by denying reality, you're not going to change reality. And that sounds so harsh, but it's in our best interest to accept reality the way it is and get better. And when we get better, then life gets better for us. and we're able to let go, we're able to have greater peace, greater joy, greater healing. Your mind, body, relationships, finances can have some new life and healing in them. So kind of went to preaching there, didn't I?
Mhm.
But anyway, I am going to shut up because now I'm 20 minutes over. But I do want to give anybody a chance to say anything briefly, keyword. Anybody, because I don't want to miss any good stuff. Anybody? Kate, you look like you got something you really want to say. No.
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully out there in video land, and hopefully you guys here on Zoom with us. And by the way, we do have a leadership meeting right after this meeting, right? And so it won't be long, but we want to add I want to add value to all of you here in the meeting with the group. I want to add value. We want to add value to all those that are watching. And by the way, if you're watching online live or by a replay, hey, just say I'm watching. You know, send us a note saying I'm watching. If you have a question, hopefully you can get through. Sometimes those things don't get through, but and we don't all see the same information. And but anyway, I just maybe it's time to take some new action, and maybe some of the action might be saying I'm watching. Now that may be too risky for you, and if it is, I understand. Okay, but we want the best for you, and so please make healthy choices. May the Lord bless you and keep you, and may His face shine upon you and give you His peace. I'm glad you're with us. Zach, I'm going to turn it over to you as I go shut her down and let you go from here. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to the team. Don't forget the leadership meeting right after this. All right. Here you go, Zach.
All right. Thank you, Doug. Miracle. Hey, can you hear me? We love you. Everybody loves you. Okay. We're here. All right. And we love all of you. We're glad that you're here with us. And whoever's got the wind blowing, can you roll your window up or something or other? Thank you. And we're glad you joined us tonight, and hope you join us next week. And we just ask that the Lord keep you and bless you and take care of you until we all come together again next week. And we ask that the Lord work in your lives, and we thank Him for that in Jesus' name. And we hope to see you next week.